So good morning to everyone. My name is Luciano Saso. I'm the president of UNICA. UNICA is a network of 55 universities based in 38 capital cities of Europe. And it is a great pleasure for us to organize this webinar on pharma and biotech careers in Europe. The idea is to try to inform master students, PhD students, recent graduates about all the opportunities that you have after your graduation in biotechnology, in pharmacy, in industrial pharmacy, and in related degree programs. We know that it's not very easy for you to find this information. Very often you study very hard, you achieve excellent academic results, and again, it's not easy to find exactly your path. There are so many different possible careers in your fields. And the idea of this webinar is to try to help, to make you better aware of the different opportunities. And this webinar was organized together with several colleagues and friends. And all of us, I think we share, this passion for all of you students to try to, again, inform you, to make you more aware of all the opportunities that you have. And the webinar has been organized by UNICA together with the Pharmaceutical Students Association. And I really want to thank EPSA also for this partnership. And together also with other colleagues from UNICA universities, especially Chris van Schravendijk from the Free University of Brussels, the Flemish-speaking university, and from Ankara University, the Faculty of Pharmacy. So I would like to thank also very much Professor Josse R Thomas, who is a guest lecturer at the KU Leuven and the senior consultant at PharmaCS for this partnership. We worked really very hard together to design the program and to try to attract good speakers, again, with good experience, capable of informing you on the different career opportunities that you have. Before, actually in 2016, we organized another event similar to this one in Brussels. And that at that time, of course, before COVID, the event was a classical event in person. And I think Professor van Schravendijk will have a photo about that event that he just showed us. And it was really very nice at that time to start to work together with some of the colleagues that today and in the second part of this webinar on the 14th of December will speak. I want to tell all of you that this webinar will be recorded. So basically you can also share it with your colleagues, with your friends. The participation, of course, to this event is completely free. And again, we really hope that this will be useful to all of you. We are also planning to publish a book on this topic, and the book will be available next year, again, in open access and completely for free for students and recent graduates. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Josef Kunrt, the Vice President of Education of the European Pharmaceutical Student Association, EPSA.
Thank you, Luciano, and thank you for inviting us here to this event. I would like to welcome you all. I'm really happy to see the rising number of participants. It makes me really happy that students are active and they want to learn more what awaits them after their studies. And I'm really happy that as EPSA we can contribute to this and share a light of what students think and expect once they will finish their studies. Just to present you EPSA very little, we are international European organization and we are representing over 100,000 students from 36 European countries. We are trying to be their voice in Europe and to present their thoughts about studies, about the curriculum, but also we try to give them some extracurricular activities that they can attend and that they can use to broaden their knowledge during their studies to make them more employable sometimes, or just more knowledgeable and active as a future healthcare professionals. So once again, thank you for the invitation, and I really hope that you will like this event and the next part that will be coming very soon.
Thank you very much, Josef. And now it is a pleasure to give the floor to Professor Josse Thomas. Again, is a guest lecturer at the University KU Leuven in Belgium and senior consultant of the Pharma CS.
Good morning, everyone. How? Am I sharing my screen? Hello?
Yes. Yes, Josh, we see your screen.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. As an introduction, I will just have say a few words about what is the scope of the sector that we are going to treat. I've called it the biomedical research sector. In the title, it is Pharma and Biotech. We mean by that the inventors of biomedical interventions. They are mostly products, medicines, or medical devices or whatever, but also services and solutions. And they are there, these interventions, to prevent or treat diseases and to promote health. And this sector, the biomedical research sector, is a part of the wider biomedical healthcare sector. That's what we are focusing on. They mainly include pharma business, the pharma sector with medicines, the red biotech with biologicals and ATMPs, advanced technology medicinal products. Also sometimes overarching term is the biopharmaceutical sector, but also the medtech sector, which is in fact the biggest one in this biomedical research sector. Medical devices, in vitro diagnostics, and digital health and care. But also, as you will see in the second part of this seminar series, related subsectors such as special foods, the nutraceuticals, and eventually also personal care products. There is all this sector, which is relatively broad, offers a wealth of opportunities for jobs and careers in Europe. There are certainly more than 1 million employees in Europe in this sector. It is along the entire drug or product life cycle and in diverse organizations and companies for a wide spectrum of talented professionals. I will just say a few words more about that. The drug life cycle or the product life cycle is classically divided into research, discovery research, development with non-clinical and clinical development, and commercialization, which we hope will be the longest part of the cycle, with market access, marketing and sales, and then also, of course, manufacturing, production and distribution. There is a timeline. It is a matter of many years to have a patent, the drug candidate, a marketing authorization, and then have a life of the product on the market. So we will go through that because along the entire drug life cycle or the product life cycle, there are many possibilities. And that is in a variety of organizations and companies. I've told about the pharma, the biotech and the medtech sector and also the related industry, but also there are
Josh, we lost your audio for a second. Josh, we lost your audio. Okay, unfortunately, there is a problem with Professor Thomas that will anyway, will speak afterwards. So I guess for the moment we can move on, and then we will give the floor again to Professor Thomas in a little bit later during the webinar. So now it is a pleasure to give the floor again to Josef Kunrt, together with Andreea Iordache. They are educational affairs coordinators of the European Pharmaceutical Student Association, EPSA. And they will talk about a very interesting topic, I think, for all of you. And the topic is what students expect after a degree in pharmacy or biotechnologies.
So thank you once again for the floor. Let me just rearrange it a bit here so I can see you and also the presentation. So once again, thank you for the invitation here, and welcome to our presentation. As Luciano mentioned, we will be focusing on the expectations of students or recent graduates with pharmacy or biotechnology degree. Just a little bit of agenda. What we will be focusing is on the expectations versus the reality. The challenges that we think that young graduates have to face when they are entering the job market. Some conclusions, what we think that are the biggest issues and how they could be overcome. And then a bit about what we as EPSA are doing to tackle these problems. Just a small disclaimer at the beginning. This presentation is based on mine and Andrea's experience, as we are very recent graduates from pharmacy, and it's also what we gathered among our peers, our colleagues, recent graduates around Europe, and also from our respective countries. So when a student or recent graduate is entering the job market, they're usually thinking that everything will be really easy and they will find and land their job gradually. But the reality is somewhere else. Not all the time it's easy for the graduate to land the job they want, and there are many hurdles that they have to face when becoming a professional in the field of pharmacy or biotechnology in general. But before we will move to the actual expectations and realities, we would like to hear more about more from you. So we prepared a small poll on Slido. I put in the chat the website slido.com, and if you enter the code, you can write what you have been expecting when you've been entering the studies at pharmacy, what you wanted to do after your studies. We will then look at it and address it at the end of the presentation or during the discussion. So now let's move on. As I said, majority of graduates, young graduates, are expecting easy job search. They are thinking that they will be a respected healthcare professional that has a really firm place within the whole healthcare system. A lot of them wants to make a change, as young, enthusiastic professionals usually do. And they are expecting opportunity to grow both personally and professionally. The problem with job search is not always companies are offering entry-level or junior positions. The general perspective of pharmacists is that they are selling drugs or medicines, and not much of the lay public knows what pharmacists can really do, and that pharmacy is just a very small fraction of what we can do after graduation. With making a change, it's usually the problem of rigid system or regulations that are slowing down the ability to make a change. It depends on the size of the company, for example. Usually bigger companies have more rigid systems than, for example, startups. And graduates are facing this challenge as well. And regarding opportunity to grow, there's a lack of learning opportunities and practical training, both during the recent graduate phase and a bit later in their career. Some more reality checks for young graduate is that what is taught is not really what is needed when they are landing a job. The access to job opportunities across Europe is not equal, especially when it comes to pharma industry. We can see that Western Europe has usually more opportunities to land a job in pharma industry compared to Eastern Europe. The quality of studies, both undergraduate and postgraduate, differs across the Europe, which has consequences, for example, for students who want to focus on research and development job. And in general, the resources during studies, both like during the studies itself or mobility ones, are not equal around Europe. So that's what students have to face. Here we have a very small example, and that is for regulatory affairs intern or associate. We looked on LinkedIn what are the options we have as graduates, and we are looking for entry-level jobs. And the problem is that even entry-level jobs usually require quite extensive experience. And we thought, what might be the problem, and what are the challenges that we have to face, and the discrepancies between what we think that we will see and then what we see actually when we are entering the job market. So one of the first challenges we thought about is the lack of real life skills, which can be caused by the ability not to take internship outside of community pharmacy or pharmacy in general. Many countries really don't have internships, both optional or mandatory, that would be in industry or in regulatory bodies. And then during studies, often there's a lack of focus on soft skills, and they're used in the like real life events, and their combination with the hard skills we are taught during our studies. One way to offer students with more real life skills is implementing different internships during their studies, both optional and mandatory, and also included soft skill trainings. That should be done in conjunction with the hard skills that they are being taught at the university. And then encourage students to develop outside of the studies through volunteering, through students' associations, through going to congresses. There's many options, but students don't really know about them, or it's hard for them to pursue this path. The curricula is a bit outdated at the moment, from the reason that the role of pharmacist shifted over past several 10 years. And we think that the studies should cover a wider spectrum of topics, for example, economics, regulatory affairs, and so on. So students will have better knowledge when entering the job market. A lot of students have wrong motivation for studying. They are either studying for just getting the degree and landing an easy job, or they are studying for grades and not really for the knowledge. And one of the reasons that this might be a fact that some of the students and faculties are facing is that their evaluation techniques encourage them to focus more on grades rather than the knowledge that they are obtaining. A lot of, or some of the teaching methods that are used by the professors and lecturers at faculties of pharmacy are a bit outdated, or they are not using innovative teaching methods. And for this, it would be rather easy to include some personalized teaching approaches and do, for example, a little assessment at the beginning of the course to see what the lecturer or the educator is working with in terms of students. And then the last big problem for many students is that they don't really know what the field of pharmacy offers. A lot of students still see just pharmacy as a valid option after their graduation. And it's very easy to address this, and this webinar and the subsequent event is a great opportunity for students to learn more and to learn what are the options. And now I would like to give the floor to my colleague, to Andreea, and she will continue with this presentation.
Hello everyone from my side as well. I'm really glad to be here. So after everything that Josef presented until now, I will just make a small sum up regarding the lessons learned so far, regarding the expectations and or the experiences of the student and the reality, and what are the needed changes. And the first one would be a bigger variety of internships included, and not only the community pharmacy ones, as Josef presented previously, because this will allow students to get a broader knowledge about what they can do after finishing their studies. Can you? Then empowering students to become lifelong learners, which is a very important skill for a healthcare professional, because we are not learning only during our 4, 5, 6 years. We have to continue learning after graduating as well, and instead of encouraging students to learn only for grades or for the degree, they should be better taught to learn just to become better professionals. Then building a fit for future curricula that would allow students to develop in this field and to learn also by themselves, and not only what is taught at the university, but also provide them with a curricula that would allow them to develop a lot of hard and soft skills. And in the end, we think it's important to have students included in the decision-making process, at least to consult them with the things that are important to them. For example, the curricula or evaluation processes or things like that, because in the end, they are the ones that are in the center of the studying process, and everything around it should be designed for them. They should be in the center of it, and they should be asked for feedback or opinions regarding how they would like to be taught, how it would be more efficient for them to be taught. And the last part is about what is EPSA doing to complement the studies, the pharmaceutical studies. And the first project that I'm going to talk about is LEAP, which is a lifelong learning platform. As I mentioned previously, it's very important to encourage students to become lifelong learners. Therefore, a few years ago, EPSA developed this platform, having in mind this aim. What are students doing here? They are submitting forms with educational outcomes. They like the main important lessons they learn from different activities, like webinars, events, congresses, trainings. What are the most important things they learn? We are evaluating them and we are giving them awards, and each year they receive a certificate. And also here we are promoting news regarding events organized by EPSA and EPSA's partners that they can be a part of. Next project is EPSA career page, which can be found on EPSA's website. Again, we mentioned previously that students don't really know everything that is out there for them. They don't know all the possibilities they have after studying, or what those fields suppose And therefore, on this page, they can find more information regarding the task and the skills required for each pharmaceutical area. And they can also read some testimonials from the pharmacists regarding their day-to-day tasks. And last but not least is methodology booklet, which is a broader project that started a few years ago. The first edition was released in October 2018. We aim with it to present the European pharmaceutical students and recent graduates' opinion regarding the teaching methodologies that are used by faculties of pharmacy in Europe. And the outcomes of the survey are meant to assist educators and policymakers to improve the European pharmaceutical education. And from this main methodology booklet, we are taking several outcomes. As you can see, we had a lot of questions divided into multiple parts for the first methodology booklet. We received a lot of responses from students across Europe, and we are happy to have had with us EFP to support and to help us in this journey of making the methodology booklet, and they are still there by our side. And as I mentioned, we are taking outcomes from each of the main parts of the big methodology booklet, and we are further developing them into annexes. And so far, we released this year one annex on soft skill, which started by the fact that 93% of students expressed their desire for more inclusion of soft skills in the European pharmaceutical curricula. And the aim of this annex was to propose how soft skills should be taught from the students' perspective and envision how they would really like to have a soft skills course in their studies. Again, the survey was open for like 3 months, and we had a high number of responses from students in different levels of studies. And now we are working on Annex 2 that is focusing on teaching methodologies. We released this month the survey that is focusing on 4 main aspects: integration of divergent teaching methods in the curricula, the knowledge transfer, the tools that the educators can use, and how student satisfaction can be assessed. And with it, we aim to propose how different teaching tools should be implemented in the pharmaceutical education and how the knowledge transfer between education and students could be improved, and also how progressive digitalization could be incorporated in the education process. This annex would be released next year around March, April, with the outcomes from the survey. And here on this slide, we added a little sum up of everything that we presented here regarding how it is to be a pharmacist after graduation, what everyone else thinks you do, and what are the things you really do, showcasing that a lot of people are not really aware about what pharmacists are really doing and what they are studying and what they are prepared for. We would like to thank you for the opportunity to come here and to speak. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask us, and also you can contact us at the emails that you can see on this slide.
So thank you very much, Andrea and Josef, for this very interesting presentation. I really loved the last slide with the different expectation. I think is fantastic. Concerning the questions, I remind all participants that you can write questions in the chat at any time, and then we will open the discussion after the next 2 talks. But before continuing with this session, let me give the floor to Professor Sibel Susan. She's a professor of the Faculty of Pharmacy of Ankara University in Turkey, and she's a member of the UNICA Steering Committee.
Thank you, Professor Saso. It was so lovely to listen, Josef and Andrea. So I felt young again, and I remember my problems when I was a student. And believe me, we had a lot of problem also. But well, of course, we can't compare because it's been too many years, and now we had a lot of opportunities. In back days, we couldn't see each other, we couldn't meet easily, so we had no idea what was happening in another country. So at least now we have this opportunity. Of course, the COVID maybe made things harder for all of us, but at least we can do these webinars and we can meet maybe more than it used to be. So we have to take these advantages maybe for the future studies, because pharmacy world is too big. There are many opportunities, but usually new students or new graduates, they don't know exactly what to do straight away. So because there are a lot of options, and so you need to gain more different skills to get these jobs. And this pharmaceutical field offers a wealth of job and career opportunities for talented young graduates with a sound background in life science and various other academic disciplines as well. And because these employment options are often insufficiently known to young people, young maybe students and graduates, and the aim of this webinar maybe is to give them better ideas. All of us and these valuable speakers of this webinar will give many different ideas, many different angles to the problems. And these important talks includes many detailed and general descriptions of this drug life cycle for us. And also, I hope the core of the meeting gives an overview of different new generations jobs ideas of the pharmaceutical sector. And what we see today, the career perspectives and training opportunities are the main concern for the students. So to help these challenges, we should maybe focus on important employability elements, as well as some practical do's and don'ts for the effective job applications and opportunities. And because the world is, the pharmacy maybe I should say, world is too big. We can look for different areas, retail pharmacists in private sector, manufacturing and production in industry. There are all different kinds of process control, optimizing in industry, personal business. We can do our own startup, and state government pharmacies, central government pharmacies, quality assurance, marketing, data scientists, analysis, pharmacovigilance, higher studies related to your interest, research, in your country or maybe all over Europe. You can choose a country to work. So however, these all job opportunities requires good experience, projects and knowledge. So you have to gain all these experience while you are student, or maybe while you are a very new graduate. So you have to focus what you like more. And so it's great that we are able to organize such an inspiring webinar. So I would like to thank Professor Saso and EPSA students. So I see online there are many networks and students are online with us. So it will be a good maybe brainstorm. We can talk and share the ideas more and more. So this opportunity is great. I would like to thank you, all the participants, and I wish this will be a valuable webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Susan. Thank you, Sibel, for these very nice words. And now let's continue with the session one, which we already started with Josef and Andreea. And the title of the session, as you saw in the program, is Life After Academia. And now we have an excellent speaker to talk about that. Professor Chris van Schravendijk is an emeritus professor at the Faculty of Medicine and Pharmacy of the Free University of Brussels. And he will talk about launching your pharma biotech career in Europe.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
All right. I want to share my screen with you. I hope it is clear in this way. Maybe we should just adjust it a little bit in this way.
Perfect.
I hope you can see my slide.
Very well.
All right. As Professor Saso already introduced me, we are already collaborating for many years, and this is a slide from one of the most recent congresses we did in, let's say, real life. You see several teachers and presenters in this slide that are also involved in these two webinars. So that's very nice. And I want to especially thank Professor Saso also in this photo for organizing these webinars and for inviting me to give you some ideas and inspirations about life after academia, especially when aiming at a career in the pharma biotech sector. At university, I was responsible for a master and PhD program in medical pharmaceutical research. And after 2008, I was the director of Doctoral School of Life Sciences and Medicine. So I had a lot of concerns about preparing students for a life after academia while still in the university. And so that is also the aim of my next 15 minutes to tell you a little bit more about what you can do during university to be better prepared for a life in a pharma biotech after leaving the university. So one of the first things that so there are basically three things. My talk is divided in three things. You can do some preparations, you can get some contacts while still in universities, and you will have some extra activities during your university years, especially the higher years that prepare better for a career in pharma biotech. First of all, in terms of preparations, I would like to emphasize that it is good to start preparing rather early. If you can already during your undergraduate studies, so early in your studies. That's of course a recommendation, but it's not very, very strict. I would like to weaken this point a little bit because you may not have a clue at the beginning of your studies, and you can also still start preparing later on, even today or tomorrow, if you have a really motivation, or you get the motivation today during the talks of the various presenters, it's still not too late. So it's altogether starting early is better. But if you really want to go for it, you can, it's actually never too late. During your studies, you can always start, but then you have to think a little bit more strategically. So I was very interested in hearing that many students in pharmacy, they study for their grades. That's really not a good idea. You better study a little bit more as a strategy to show that you develop a vision of your preparations for life after academia. So you should be aware that actually many academic disciplines are welcome in pharma biotech. It's not only the pharmacy students or the biomedical students. And I will have a next slide for this to show you and to illustrate this. So that comes in the next slide. Many make your academic profile something special in order to stand out. What do I mean to say, to show you is that you need something extra. For example, this can be an extra competence after you followed some additional courses. For example, biostatistics is very important in the sector, but also you can step out of your faculty and you go to some law faculty and you study, you do a crash course in patent law. And immediately when you go for a job, people say, oh, but you have played your study a little bit like you play a game of chess. You have thought about it strategically, and you have also some knowledge in patent law. So that is something very interesting to see if you are an HR recruiter in pharmacy. That students don't only study for their grades, but they study with a vision and a strategy behind it. So of course, you should also learn another language. If you will want to start a European career, you should study one of the European languages, English or French or German. That doesn't really matter. And after all, if you, for example, by familial reasons, you have a lot of contacts with Japan, there's nothing against study a little bit more Japanese language, and suddenly you're somebody special. For a particular job perspective, you suddenly open the doors towards collaborations with Japanese experts in the field. So that is something just to illustrate that if you have something special, you will always find a point that you can benefit from that. And it doesn't really matter what it is, as long as it fits your own profile. So you find also there's a lot of questions about the knowledge of pharma biotech sector. And one of the reasons to make these these two webinars is that we were aware that there's not so much knowledge about pharma biotech sector and not so much understanding. And in 2016, our group, the group behind these two webinars, has made a very interesting book chapter on job and career opportunities in the pharmaceutical sector, explaining a number of basic features in this sector. This so-called InTech paper is freely available via our network. And reading such a chapter is, I think, really advisable because it supports your understanding of what this type of industry really is. And it also has to offer, as was already said by Professor Susan, many different opportunities. And it will help you, the reading this paper will help you to find out where you fit in as a person and as a professional. So my recommendation is read this InTech paper, and you can certainly get it freely available via a link via this network. So an additional extra competence is also very important, and I'm going to the 2.6, find the right balance between becoming a specialist and a universalist. What do I mean with that is, on the one hand, you will always become some kind of specialist. And specialization is just part of your development as a person, as a student, and as a professional. But my advice is that you should also keep a wider and open horizon and take a look, a broader look at the whole field. So a sincere interest in the field in which you seek a job is certainly appreciated and also very quickly recognized by the job seekers, by the HR people. General awareness of what happens in the pharma biotech is very much appreciated and also valuable. And I think that many of the listeners today will already experience some degree, because it's only normal that family and friends will today ask you how the developments are with vaccine development and how this is going to be rolled out in various countries. Consider yourself as the one that should know a little bit better than the other people how things are today and where they will stand tomorrow. So know yourself. Are you a salesperson? Are you a scientist? Are you an innovator? That is also very important. A certain degree of self-knowledge is crucial. Your affinities and inclinations toward a kind of career are so important and determined by personality. So knowing enough about the biotech sector will allow you also to fit in better when you know yourself also. This is the slide I already promised you. I just want to show you, give you an impression of that it is certainly not only pharmaceutical sciences, but and medical or biomedical sciences, but there is a whole range of academic disciplines that directly or indirectly can be very valuable for the pharma biotech sector. So the intake is much broader, and I expect that other speakers, for example, Professor Josse R Thomas, will give you some more ideas maybe about this, but it is certainly not restricted or confined to the pharmaceutical sciences sensu stricto, but it is certainly much wider. And so you will meet also people with an engineering background, a mathematics background. And that is also why it is so good. If you do maybe not a big, but small extra things, you interest for bioinformatics or biomathematics or anything, it will immediately give you this extra value and some extra thing to stand out. So let's talk a little bit about the context. The context you should consider, of course, doing a master with a clear link to industry. And when you make this choice, be a little bit careful, because if you do a project in industry, you have to prepare very good in advance. So you start actually preparing and only decide that you can do it after the preparation. So that is what I always taught to my students. You don't first decide that you do the project and then start to organize. No, you start to organize and then decide that you can do it. Because industrial environments logically have different priorities than academic laboratories. So you only decide that this is the thing for you after your project is well described. You have an available on-site project leader in the industrial lab during your research stage, as well as an academic promoter in the university. And all these key persons have to be able to communicate with you, and they have to listen to you and are willing to explain. And if these important requirements are all fulfilled, yes, then you can say, I'm going to do this. And then you will have a great chance of a lifetime to have a stage. But be careful in the beginning, and then you can do it and make a solid start in an industrial lab if this is an opportunity during your studies. So you find an academic promoter and a strong project, and this is also, of course, the case for industrial collaborations leading to a PhD degree in the end. So you must be aware that industrial sectors have an umbrella or organizations for HR recruitment, and so that lots of industries are gathered under this umbrella. For example, in Flanders, we have Flanders Bio, which is quite a successful and quite an open umbrella organization. I will show you in the next slide. Find a trainer that learns you to give a 3-minute pitch. That's also an advice that I would like to give. Trainers, especially in doctoral schools like mine, they were there to train the students to give a short talk of 3 minutes without notes and without slides. You just show what you want, but you don't show it in slides or in notes, but you show it in your explanation. And it's harder than you think. And the trainer will train you, and gradually you will become very good in it. And then in 3 minutes, after some effort, you will have a major introduction of yourself. It's something you have to be aware of, that you have to learn this. But this is really, I think, something I would like to recommend to follow. 3 minutes pitch is something in the industry which is highly appreciated. You are also trained in this 3 minute pitch, for example, to tell briefly what you are, what you have done already, and so on. Okay, this is the Flanders Bio website. It's a member directory. It has more than 350 companies, which are sometimes small, sometimes intermediate, and sometimes quite large. And so, and all these companies have, during their life cycle, varying degrees of job opportunities. When you type jobs on the Flanders Bio website, you just type jobs. I did that last week. I had immediately a message that we have an enormous amount of vacatures, open job positions in the Belgium biotech sector. And I just had the figure of more than 1,600 new job offers in the biotech sector. So that is, of course, just a number, but it tells you that these jobs are there. The only thing is for you is you have to find the one that fits your profile. Then what can we do about activities? And that is, of course, what I actually want to show here for the activities is what do future employees in the sector typically before leaving university? First of all, when COVID-19 is over, visit a congress, symposium in the pharma biotech sector of your special interest. This is really much better to meet the people in life. We have a fantastic interface at the moment, but a real life interface is still, for this purpose, is still the best, I think, that there is. And follow a language course to improve your linguistic skills, but do it in a way that you are tested and you have a certification in your curriculum vitae. What I mean here is you have to build your curriculum vitae with certified language competencies. That is something in a job application that works. And so we have done in our doctoral school a real effort to not only say, well, I did a little bit of French and a little bit of German. No. You just do this in a way that you are rigidly tested, and you do an exam, and maybe one time you will fail, and then you do it again, and you will be successful, and then you will have a certification, and the code in the certification will indicate the level of your competency. So try to follow an international training of several months in a country.
Chris, we have to try to close in 2-3 minutes because.
Yeah, I will do that. I will because this is my penultimate slide, so I can close in a few minutes. Okay, find overviews of companies, visit the Medline and PubMed regularly, so to get some extra information about, for example, active products. Start a professional profile on LinkedIn, and read a student edition on international journals of pharma and biotech. So this is my penultimate slide. This is about New Scientist. It's a wonderful journal. I think it's not so expensive. I don't know the prices, but it's really something you can also find in the student library of your faculty. Again, I type jobs. Lots of jobs here. These have no overlap with the jobs I showed you, the 1,600 in Flanders. This is just UK, especially the region around London. And so you have, again, an enormous amount of jobs there. And so this is where I would like to end. the only thing I can add at this point is the pharma biotech sector is really an attractive sector, important for public health, as we can see it today. And we also see how many eyes are focused on the sector for ending the COVID-19 crisis. That is only an example. There will always be a need of this sector. So whatever the future will bring, interested and well-prepared job seekers will always find their way in this sector. And I will now give the microphone back to Professor Saso, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Chris and Professor van Schravendijk. It's really was really interesting what you said. I'm sure that you know, there will be questions, you know, to go deeper on some of the topics that you touched upon. And now, without you know, further ado, it is a pleasure to give the floor to Professor Josse R Thomas. He's a guest lecturer of the KU Leuven in Belgium and senior consultant of PharmaCS. And he will give an overview. He's really an expert. I listened to him several times. It is always a pleasure to benefit from his experience. He will give an overview of opportunities for jobs and careers in the pharma, bio, and med sector in Europe.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay, so my intention is to give you an overview of the job and career opportunities in the biomedical research sector in Europe. Of course, there will be some repetition with what previous speakers have already said, and there will be some repetition also by the next speakers, but that is inevitable, and it's never too much to hammer on the same nail, I guess. What is the scope of the sector that we are talking about? I've called it the biomedical research sector, and the title is Pharma and Biotech. The definition is that the inventors, the sector are the inventors of biomedical interventions. This is mostly products like medicines or medical devices, but also services and solutions, of course. And they are there, these interventions, to prevent or treat diseases and to promote health. And this sector, the biomedical research sector, is part of the wider biomedical healthcare sector. It includes mainly pharma, which is medicines or medicinal products in general, red biotech with biologicals and advanced therapy medicinal products, which are also within the definition of medicinal products. And sometimes pharma and biotech are called together the biopharma sector, but it also includes the medtech sector, medical devices, in vitro diagnostics and digital health and care, which is in fact the largest one for the number of possibilities in job and careers in Europe. There are more than 1 million employees in Europe in this broad biomedical research sector. We also intended to include related subsectors like special foods, the nutraceuticals, and personal care products. In the second part, the webinar for the second part, there will be some examples of that. This sector offers a wealth of opportunities for jobs and careers. As I was saying, more than 1 million employees in Europe. And that is along the entire drug life cycle, in diverse organizations and companies, as you already heard, and for a wide spectrum of professionals. And I will now go into more details in these different aspects. The agenda is that I will give you an overview of job opportunities along the product or drug life cycle with the example of the drug life cycle, but it is essentially the same for other products as medical devices or biotech products. It is either as an operational expert in a part of the cycle, and the cycle is in general subdivided in research, development, and commercialization, or it is in support or in management functions, which are general functions that you find everywhere. But in support, it is specific for the drug or product life cycle. It can be in part of the cycle, in research, in development, in commercialization, or it can be overarching opportunities. There is in a wide variety of functions and jobs, as I already told you, but I will give you examples, and offered to a wide spectrum of employers. I will talk finally about qualifications and profiles that are needed and some career opportunities. So let me start with what is possible along the entire drug product life cycle and give you an idea of how the drug life cycle looks like. As I was saying, three main parts: discovery research, development, which includes non-clinical and clinical development, and then commercializations, which we all hope will be the longest part of the cycle, with market access, with marketing and sales, but also with production and distribution. There is a timeline at the bottom, takes many years, and you see that not all is consecutive, but more and more we strive to do these different parts of the life cycle in parallel. And that is on the top, you can see that a lot of it goes on in parallel. So this is again not on a schematic, but in text: discovery research, development, and then we come to marketing authorization for the product or the drug, and then commercialization. There is still some continued development going on in the post-authorization phase, and I will go through these different aspects from now on. Let's start with drug discovery and research. I will not go into too much detail because, as you know, there will be next speakers who will go into much more detail about that. It is about drug discovery, but more and more about drug design. Discovery is limited, let's say, it's what is already existing in nature or in chemotakes, but design is starting from scratch, from the target, and then designing a new drug. It's either phenotypic-based or target-based, more and more today target-based, and the target-based process is subdivided in a number of sub-sectors. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but this is what is usually the path of a discovery research project. The goal is to get patented drug candidates. Now, what are the profiles that you need into that? Of course, you want to understand the pathophysiology of the disease you want to treat. And there you need biologists, chemists, biochemists, technologists, more and more bioinformaticians, and in general, biomedical scientists. From the chemical part, it is medicinal chemists, combi-chem specialists, protein chemists, analytical chemists, and more also green chemists to have drugs that can be easily degraded into the environment. Then for the functional part of it, pharmacologists, of course, pharmacokineticists, and more what we call pharmacometricians that are specialists in quantitative pharmacology and systems biology. Also, of course, engineers and bioengineers more in the in these aspects, and also more and more data analysts as more and more data become available and have to be treated. Finally, also intellectual property specialists and patent lawyers, and also then patent reviewers. These are the disciplines in general that are involved in discovery research. The second part is development, which is also a big part of the life cycle. And there we split it into non-clinical development and clinical development. Non-clinical development is, first of all, product development. In drugs, it is the pharmaceutical development, the formulation, but also the, to have a pure pharmacologically active product. Non-clinical pharmacology, also including safety pharmacology, non-clinical toxicology, non-clinical pharmacokinetics, and also finally drug analysis in different biospecimens like blood or the cerebrospinal fluid or whatever. The goal is to deliver prerequisites for clinical development. That is what is called the preclinical part of the non-clinical development. And all the non-clinical data that are needed for the marketing authorization dossier. And that is the pre-approval phase of non-clinical development. But then it continues after you get marketing authorization and the product is already on the market. And that is called the post-approval phase. The disciplines involved in pharmaceutical development or product development, in pharmaceutical development, it is chemists, of course, bioengineers or chemical engineers, pharmaceutical technologists, and also pharmacists, of course, and industrial pharmacists. In toxicology, it is toxicologists, veterinary surgeons, pathologists, pharmacists, biomedical sciences, different possibilities there too. In non-safety pharmacology or non-clinical safety pharmacology, experimental pharmacologists, again, the same different types that with masters in life sciences or PhDs in life sciences. Pharmacokinetics, non-clinical pharmacokineticists, bioanalytical chemists, of course, and there more and more specialists in pharmacometrics, modeling, and simulations. Then we move on to clinical drug development. That is classically divided into different phases because it is more complex. It is the most complex part of the development of a drug or products in general. It is subdivided in early clinical development and late clinical development. The early clinical development is more exploratory. Phase 1 with safety and pharmacokinetics, mostly in healthy volunteers, but sometimes also in patients. Phase 2A, does it work in patients? And if you have a completely new mechanism of action, the proof of concept study, which is also part of the early exploratory clinical development. Then that is followed by late clinical development, which is called also the confirmatory phase, the 2B phase, the dose regimen finding, and phase 3 with the benefit risk versus existing therapies in large study populations, all still within clinical trials. With that, you aim to go for marketing authorization. And then comes the phase 4, which is the use in clinical practice. From efficacy, you go to effectiveness and cost effectiveness. And that is also done in post-marketing authorization phase of development. And finally, there is the intention to do new clinical developments. In fact, you restart them, not completely from scratch in phase 1, but often you have to do, again, those response curves in phase 2A, and then you go again with new indications, new formulations, and new combinations. You go again through the cycles of late clinical development. That is what it is, clinical drug development. Now that is sometimes, or in most companies or development organizations, divided into different research teams, clinical development teams. First of all, what is called clinical research teams. And they are responsible for strategy, for the whole planning of the clinical development plan, the clinical trial methodology, management of clinical trials. That is mostly, these people are present in headquarters of organizations and companies. Clinical operations, they are there for implementation and monitoring, and they are mostly scattered over the world because clinical development is going on worldwide. And then there are specialists in medical review because it's very medical, it's patient-oriented, and pharmacovigilance, the safety monitoring of drugs. And finally, also a number of support functions in what is mostly called clinical services. All these teams work together, and their mission is to deliver all clinical data for the marketing authorization dossier in the pre-approval phase, and help to get all the data together for continued development in the post-approval phase with new combinations, new indications, etc. What are the disciplines involved? Clinical research. In early development, it is human and clinical pharmacologists, with our pharmacists or MDs, clinical pharmacokineticists, clinical pharmacometricians, clinicians, and medical specialists. Here we are more and more into the interface with medical disciplines or biomedical disciplines. In the late development, it is purely clinicians and medical specialists, still have the need for clinical pharmacologists, pharmaceutical physicians, which is an extra diploma for physicians, clinical or hospital pharmacists, and also more specialized disciplines such as pharmacoepidemiology in general and pharmacoepidemiology in special. In clinical operations, you have the project managers, which are country project managers eventually, but a lot of international project managers. As I was saying, clinical development is a worldwide business. There are many clinical research associated needed, the so-called CRAs or monitors that do field work to be able to make sure that the data that are collected are true data and are real data that are robust. We also need research nurses and study coordinators in the sites, and more in general, this is also terrain for pharmacists and biomedical scientists. For medical review and pharmacovigilance, it is medical doctors, medical reviewers, pharmacovigilance specialists, pharmaceutical physicians, sometimes also clinical or hospital pharmacists, and clinical toxicologists. That is the disciplines that are involved. These are the disciplines that are involved. In clinical services, it is clinical supplies, what is needed to do the clinical trials, and that is the products, of course, the medicines or the products that are tested, the materials for biospecimens, the tubes that you need to take the biospecimens and all that. These are the clinical supplies, but also sometimes a treadmill to do exercise testing, or software to be able to do central reading of different technical exams that were done. Central labs to do all the biochemical and biological tests on plasma or blood or whatever, and the whole part of study material logistics. These are the different disciplines that are involved, or the different needs in clinical development. Finally, in the drug life cycle or the product life cycle in general, we come to commercialization, and that starts with market access. You need to have a market authorization that is given by agencies, the drug agency, the EMA, for instance, the European Medicines Agency, but then you need to get a fair price, and then also you have to go to social insurance and be able to get a fair reimbursement for your drug. That is the whole business of getting market access, real market access. Marketing authorization is not enough. And medical affairs, the relationship with the prescribers or the medical doctors. Pharmaceutical marketing, sales, of course, the whole sales force, and then production and distribution. Here, the goal is to get return on investment, of course. Over the many years that were invested, the billions of dollars that were invested, to get return on it and to be able to continue research and development for new innovations. The disciplines that are involved in market access is pharmacy policy experts, drug pricing specialists, reimbursement experts to get into dialogue with the HTAs, health technology assessment bodies, pharmacoeconomists, marketing specialists, and for these HTA bodies, you need to get a core value dossier, and therefore you need also core value dossier writers. For medical affairs, it is medical advisors, medical science liaisons. All these people have contacts with the experts in the field, international experts in the field, to be able to do the clinical trials, but also to continue development and continue to position the drug in the market, and to get contact with people that are therapeutic guideline writers, etc. Medical information managers, pharmacovigilance experts, and in general, pharmaceutical physicians that have possibilities in different functions within medical affairs. Marketing and sales, you need marketing specialists, general marketing specialists, but also pharmaceutical marketing specialists, product managers, as we call them, training managers for the sales force itself, which might be medical, which might be hospital, which might be pharmacy reps, sales managers, different types of people that you need there. And finally, in production and distribution, you need production specialists for the clinical trial material, but also for the market, of course, which is much wider and much bigger. There, in drugs, it is industrial pharmacists. Otherwise, in other products, it is engineers, quality experts, and also for the distribution, experts in logistics. That is the different parts of the drug life cycle. Now in support and management functions, that is support functions that are overarching and are either specialized in a part of the drug life cycle, or that may be available for the coordination of the entire life cycle, and especially post commercialization. The first one is regulatory affairs, or regulatory sciences, as we call it today, for clinical trial applications and for marketing authorization applications. These are people that are either specialists in country regulatory affairs, regional regulatory affairs, for instance, Europe, or a subgroup of countries in Europe, the Scandinavian countries, for instance, or might be at headquarters for international regulatory affairs. A second support function that is available throughout the life cycle, either for discovery research, for development, or for commercialization, is quality management. Quality management with different parts of it: quality control, quality assurance by auditors and inspectors, and today more and more what is called inbuilt quality by design. Not going to dwell too much about this neither, because we will have a specialist in the next webinar on quality management. We need also in that sector data managers, data management functions, and biostatistics throughout the entire cycle, and also for coordinating it for clinical trial applications or marketing authorizations. And then, of course, the more general support functions that you find in every sector, that you find in every company, in every organization: training, human resources, finance, information technology, legal, everything what you need to get a company organization running. In management, as it is a team, it is team built and project team built, the development of drugs and products. You need, of course, project team managers and project team leaders. Throughout the life cycle, you need also people that manage the entire life cycle, and do the planning and the strategy about how you do the development in general, and how you go from one part, research, to development, to commercialization. Commercialization, yes. And in general, as I was saying, you have country managers, but you also need regional managers, and of course, finally, corporate managers. And then again, it is in general, you start with junior managers, you come to middle management activities, to senior managers, and finally top managers that do the strategic decision making that you need at corporate level. So this is some summary of what is possible in support and management functions. There is a wealth of opportunities in a wide variety of functions and jobs, and is offered by a wide spectrum of employers. And I will give you a few examples of that. I will go into somewhat more detail. There are many different positions and functions and jobs and titles. And it is sometimes for students or entries a bit difficult to understand what is really going on. You normally enter the sector as a junior or an assistant if you don't have experience or not that much experience. With experience, you then evolve to a function where the junior or assistant part of the title is dropped, and later on you become a senior whatever, regulatory scientists, data analysts, biostatistician, or whatever. Mostly you will be able, or you will have to work in a multidisciplinary team. And that is typical for drug and product development in the biomedical research sector. It is all done by multidisciplinary teams, and you will have to be able to work within teams. The project teams are usually led by a leader. Again, the titles differ, by a supervisor, a pilot sometimes, a manager, or a director. You have in the different parts of the cycle different units. You might have different sites in different countries, different departments. They are led by middle or top managers or directors. Again, the names might differ, but the industry is, you see a lot of managers, directors, or officers in the titles of a number of these people. Organizations and companies are led by corporate people, corporate managers, or a chief executive officer. Finally, you could become one of them. And the final remark that I make about this, about the different types of positions, jobs, and titles, is that your responsibility can be national, can be regional, or can be worldwide at the headquarters, for instance. This is schematic of a drug project team. You have a project team leader, or a manager, or a director, or a pilot in the middle who coordinates everything. There are people from discovery research, one representative or two, a representative for non-clinical development, clinical development, marketing, or the commercialization phase, but then also from the support functions, regulatory affairs, planning, finance. This is just a schematic. There might be a lot more of it. Then the possibilities are also very different in different companies, different organizations, and different institutions. First of all, there is different possibilities in the biomedical research industry, and I will get into somewhat more detail in the next slide, and I will perhaps do that immediately. The biomedical research industry is a lot of big companies, the big pharma, the big biopharma, the big biotechs, the big medtechs, and also nutraceuticals and related subsectors. But you also have a lot of small and medium enterprises, spin-offs, startups, whatever. And you also have a lot of freelancers today. And There are innovators and copycats. In drugs, it is generics and biosimilars. In the medtech sector, you have also a lot of, perhaps a bit bizarre to call them copycats, but because there is sometimes still a lot of research to be done, also in the generics and biosimilars. There's a huge business of contract research organizations that help the development organizations as service providers. And there are companies today, CROs in this sector, that are bigger, or at least as big as some of the big pharma companies. You also have opportunities in umbrella organizations, the European Federations of Pharmaceutical Industry associations, the generics business, the medtech Europe, and the European CRO federations. So there are a lot of possibilities. Coming back to the other possibilities, is a lot of possibilities are there also with the regulators, the health authorities, the different agencies, the HTA bodies, certified bodies today for the medical devices, and in patent offices, like the one we have for drugs in München. In academia, there are still a lot of possibilities, of course, in research centers, not-for-profit organizations, in NGOs, spin-offs of universities, a lot of different possibilities there also. In clinical development, there is a lot of possibilities also in clinical investigator sites, very special in early development phase 1 units, but also in hospitals, and then for phase 3 and real world clinical trials, site management organizations. That is a type of CRO that deliver possibilities to collaborate with a lot of sites in different countries. You also have consultants to the industry, lobbyists, law companies that are specialized in this business, in patents and whatever. But you also have specialists in life sciences, pharmacists and whatever, in banks and venture capitalists. And that is also a sector that is non-negligible. These are the different types of possibilities that you have. Now, move on to my final part, that is, what are the wanted qualifications and profiles, and also something about career opportunities. It is for a wide spectrum of professionals, as was already said. It is mainly masters in life sciences. That is not only confined to pharmacy, but medicine, biomedical sciences, biochemistry, biotechnology, bioengineering, whatever you call it. They are all there, and they all have possibilities in this broader sector of biomedical research. It's good to have either a further specialization, for instance, hospital or industrial pharmacy, pharmaceutical medicine for medical doctors, drug regulatory affairs, and you name it. Another possibility is to have a PhD, and sometimes also, why not, with some postdoc experience. And finally, the third possibility is to have a second degree in a totally different discipline. Not totally different, marketing, an MBA, Master in Business Administration, in economics, or specialized in health economics, or pharmacoeconomics, in law, and eventually specialized in patent law, which is important, or corporate law, or whatever. But it is not only masters, because you also need in this sector bachelors, technicians, and nurses. There's a lot of possibilities for them likewise. But then also for many other profiles, as you have that in other industries and other organizations or corporations. Marketeers, economists, health economists, lawyers, statisticians, IT and artificial intelligence specialists, finance, etc. So there's a wide spectrum of professionals that are needed in this sector. Appreciated qualifications for research and non-clinical development, which are mostly lab functions, is a PhD and, why not, postdoctoral experience. For clinical development and commercial functions, which are mostly based in an office, master's diplomas with a specialization or a second degree are more appreciated. This is not to say that a PhD is not welcome, but finally, people with a master's degree and specialization or a second degree have probably more opportunities because there's a wider spectrum of disciplines needed. Support and management functions, the same. But most of these people have some previous experience in one of these previous operational disciplines. Either they were in non-clinical development or in a commercial function before. And then finally, the ones that are employed in a factory that do the manufacturing and the distribution are industrial pharmacists and engineers. These are the most appreciated qualifications that you need to get into that sector in the different possibilities. Now, there are some new trends. They are not completely new, they are ongoing, but there is growing importance of pharmacometrics, as I already mentioned. Pharmacometrics in quantitative pharmacology, and they also do a lot of the modeling and simulations. Big data analysis in general, but more and more big data analysis. The digital technology gets more and more important. Artificial intelligence is moving on, and virtual experiments or virtual clinical trials. So all that needs more STEM specialists or STEM super specialists with a fairly good background of mathematics. And that is something that is growing in importance and is certainly a trend to follow. Second trend to follow is more and more we see the development of combined products. That is drug medical device combined, like the drug-eluting stents, for instance. A drug with a companion diagnostics, very important in the personalized medicines and the personalized medicines that we do more and more today. Drug and medical apps, more and more also to find patients with risks and to get them more and more involved. Also, drug medical apps like, for instance, the insulin pumps that diabetics type 1 need. There's the insulin, the drug, there is the pump, the medical device, and there is the sensor for glucose, and there is a medical app that they use to monitor all the time what is going on. The second thing that we see as an evolution is that we see more and more the importance of networks, alliances, consortia, public-private partnerships, and things like that. I only have to mention what is going on today for the development of COVID-19 vaccines, and you see the alliances, for instance, between smaller biotech companies like Moderna and Biotech and big companies, pharma companies like Pfizer and AstraZeneca. These are two examples of alliances and consortia that you see more and more. Consortia and PPPs is what you see, for instance, in the IMI, the Innovative Medicines Initiative within the European Commission. So there is more need for more intense collaboration today and in the future, and that is an important trend. I will go on with the sought after personality profiles. It was already mentioned, so I will go briefly over that. The interest that you have to have in the biomedical research sector in general.
We have to close in a few minutes.
Yeah, I will do that.
Okay, thanks.
You have to have the capacity to work in a team, already mentioned. Creative and innovative mindset, be able to draw outside the lines. Talent for organization, good sense for communication, high level of linguistic skills, and willing to learn lifelong. And be prepared for a fierce competition, because there is a lot of opportunities, but it is also a large part of people that are interested. So career opportunities to finish with. You can stay an expert and become better and better in that, or you can become a leader, a manager, a director. You can move along the drug life cycle. People start sometimes in research, then move on to development and move on to commercialization, become a product manager finally. You can move lateral within one sector, within one expertise, or you can move up and start to become a manager of a group of people or many different people. You can move to another company, you start in one, move to another. A lot of people have the possibility to move to different companies. You can start an international career, you can switch between industries, you can switch between industry and CROs, academia, agencies, or you can start your own company or become self-employed and be a freelancer. These are all the different possibilities that are there, and it's up to you to see what you will be able to do or what you like to do. And finally, I think this will be my last slide, but for a reason, this is my last slide. This is the conclusion. So this a sector, the biomedical research sector, with a lot of assets. There is a wide spectrum of jobs available. There are good career opportunities. You have a nice remuneration package in general. And within this pandemic, it is, I think, a future-proof sector. It has a number of side effects, as we would call it in the sector. It is the importance of personal skills, the lifelong learning, the flexibility that you need, and to get to the top also, the international mobility. And also, of course, you have to be able to get a work-life balance and get to know what you will be able to do in the future. So that was it, and thank you for your attention.
Okay, so thank you very much, Jos. Was really very interesting. Your overview, I think, was very clear, very comprehensive.